All right, let's get some Indiana perspective for a top 20 matchup between Illinois and Indiana with Matt Weaver, Pigs.com. And just to start, Matt, you've been covering Indiana football for a long time. I've been covering Illinois football for a long time. A lot of losses, a lot of bottom of the Big Ten finishes here. What's your perspective of Indiana playing this type of matchup against Illinois?
Well, I mean, I'm confused. Shouldn't this be during basketball season?
Sure.
You know what I mean? So that we saw these, we've seen these a bunch over the years in basketball. Not so much lately for Indiana in basketball, but there was a time. So it's surreal. I mean, it really is, and it's I think it's the last time this has happened for Indiana with another ranked game. It's since like 1987. I mean, that was like Bill Mallory. You know what I mean? That was a long time ago. That's the last time Indiana won a basketball national championship. So it's been a lot of fun. This program is at a level that I've never ever seen, even under Mallory when I was a kid, and they were winning and doing well. I mean, they're contenders. They went to the playoff last year. They're a contender again this year, just like Illinois is. And it's weird, but in a good way. So like I said, I think surreal is the best word to describe it. I'm not used to it, but it's something I definitely could get used to.
Yeah, and Illinois coach Brett Bielema had a lot of praise for Curt Cignetti. I heard Cignetti had a lot of praise for Bielema and just the way they go about things. So, from your perspective, Matt, how has he done this? It is clear Cignetti came in saying some big things, but he backed it up last year. Off to a 3-0 start against a softer schedule, of course, but that's a good football team. How has he turned this so quickly?
I mean, these get used a lot, but I just think, I mean, culture is huge. And I mean, some guys are just born to do something, and this guy's born to be a football coach. And, before when they were, not to get too far off track, but when things were going sideways with Tom Allen, and maybe you do this when you're with Illinois, when guys are starting to not look good and it looks like the end could be coming. Maybe you start looking ahead, like who would I try to sit in the AD's chair. Who would I go after with Indiana's resources, with their history, and with what they can offer? And I thought, I'm going to go for a guy who's gone to places and they were bad and they immediately win. To me, that's coaching. When you take somebody else's players and you win right away, you know what you're doing. There's something, you just have that factor, that it factor. And he did it at Indiana, PA. Then he goes to Elon, and they were awful, and he turns them around. Obviously, James Madison was good, but he even took him to a different level. He has a great staff. He has a plan. He executes it. He works his butt off. I mean, this is the guy who gets in the office at like 4:35 in the morning, is there, all day. I mean, he's obviously he's not the only coach who does that, but he's just really good. Their practices are incredibly efficient. I mean, they'll practice less than 2 hours and get a ton done. They just know exactly when to go on the next day. It's very detail oriented. And he's gotten good players. I mean, last year, now he's gotten a lot of group G5 guys, which is what they did last year, but he got G5 guys, and you know how it is. A G5 guy from a good program who's been played 3 or 4 years is one of the best players. That's like getting a 4, maybe even a 5-star recruit out of high school. I mean, those guys can come in now maybe for 1 year, but you're getting a guy who can come in and play right away. Curtis Rourke, Justice Ellison last year, the guys from JMU that he brought in. So it's hard to really pinpoint one specific thing. He's just really good at what he does. They keep the main thing, and these are all buzzwords everybody uses, but they really, really do it. And, they're not perfect all the time, but these players move on from play to play and game to game. And it's been incredible to watch. It really has been. I've never seen anything like it in Indiana in football. Man, not since the heyday of Bob Knight did you see a program so well run, and just basically the expectations and the standard were so high.
Yeah, you mentioned the program builders. That's why I like Lance Leipold at Kansas. What a hire that is. Like when you're in a program like Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, you got to find guys like that. So what has that done to an Indiana fan base we associate with basketball? Like what has that done for the football passion fan base? What are we going to see Saturday night in Bloomington?
I think it's going to be a great crowd, and every game, I think, except for one now on the schedule, is sold out or almost sold out. And last year they sold out, I want to say, their last 4 games or so. It kind of started with that in Nebraska when I think Fox Big Noon kickoff came, and then it just carried through. So, there's still, I think there's probably still a portion of the fan base that's still, kind of wait and see a little bit. I mean, the crowds for the first 3 games were honestly just so-so. The students have shown up tremendously. It's getting kind of the fan that has to come from Indianapolis or wherever, a couple hours away. And a lot of them come down. They just stay outside in the parking lot. You need to get them into the stands. But the fans have definitely embraced it. They're eating it up. I mean, our board is definitely a lot more active, the football board, than it has been in a long time. Usually boards are very active when you're really, really bad or when you're really, really good. And so it's been fun because it's been really active because it's good, because they're good. But yeah, the fans are definitely, and the more they win, but it's good. This fan base has been beaten down for a long time. There's been a lot of bad seasons, and it looked like Tom Allen was turning around in 19 and 20, and then 21 comes, and then it was a total train wreck from there on out. So I think this is different. I think, in this case, you have a guy who knows how to be a head coach who if he loses a staff member or two, will be able to, move on and keep it going. Unlike that what happened with Allen. So but I do think there are still some fans that are a little bit. They've been fooled before, and they want to make sure they're not getting fooled again. But most of this fan base is eating this up and loving it.
How much concern? Because when you have a coach who does what he does, how much concern is there about, you see his name come up already with Virginia Tech and things like that. He's getting paid really well. He's at a Big Ten school. Like I think it's got to be a great job for him to leave. But at a program like Indiana, is that always a concern in the fan base's mind?
I guess, but I mean, he just got that. I mean, like he came in last year. They redid his contract. He's at like $8-9 million a year, like for like it's like $70-something million. I mean, I think Virginia Tech was paying probably like $3 million. Right. Like I don't think they would be, now, maybe if like a big job opens up. I mean, I'm not saying, let's say Bama or, something like that. He's been there before. He was on the ground floor with Saban when Saban took over that program. He was his receivers coach and recruiting coordinator. But he seems to really like it. As long as Indiana gives him the resources, look, he's proved it. You can go to the playoff and play for a national title in Indiana. That's the two biggest reasons why you leave a school if you're a coach is money and the chance to win. These guys all want to win. They're egomaniacs. We know that. We've been around these guys a long time. That's not a bad thing. That's how you get to be successful. And they want to go where they can go and win a national title and etch themselves among the top coaches that ever coached in the game. And I'm not saying Indiana's Alabama, but he showed that you can at Indiana, at least in his first year, do what you can do at Alabama. It may be, and I think with rev share now and the media deal that the Big Ten has, now going forward, we'll see what happens. But, Illinois, Indiana, Minnesota, those schools, you can compete with the big boys because it's been leveled a little bit. And then the portals level things out a little bit too, because you guys that are second or third string at a big school or guys from a G5 school, you can get those guys and you can win right away. So I'm not worried about it. I mean, towards the end of last year when his name was kind of being brought up, once they redid that contract, I think he's here for the long haul. I think his wife loves it here. I think he loves it, at Indiana. And as long as they're committed to winning, I think he'll be I think this will be his last stop.
It's great. It's phenomenal for a program like that. I think Brett Bielema's locked in here for the long term as well. So that's really great to see. Let's get into this team now because they do return a significant amount from last year. I think it was 62% of their production is returning, but added some pieces. The Old Dominion win looks a little better now that they beat Virginia Tech. It's a soft schedule, obviously. I understand why they do it. Because get to a bowl game, you check that off the list, but obviously they have higher expectations. Matt, what have you learned about the program or this team so far through these 3 games, and how much do you still have to learn with not having a Power 4 opponent yet?
Yeah, I mean, they're talented. I think on paper, and I said this before the season, they're more talented than they were last year, and they could finish with the worst record because the schedule in the conference is harder. You got to go to Iowa, you got to go to Oregon, you got to go to Penn State. Illinois comes to town. They didn't play anybody as good. I mean, last year, Illinois, other than Ohio State, would have been the best team they played all year if you don't count going to the playoff against Notre Dame. I think Illinois is even probably better than Michigan. Michigan's defense was salty last year, but their offense wasn't that great. So the schedule's much tougher. I mean, Mendoza's good. I think he's as good as Rourke was. I think he gives you more because he can run the ball a little bit. You can do some of that, the read option where he keeps it and runs with it. You couldn't do that with Rourke. He can really throw the ball. I think the running backs, even with the loss of Lee Beebe, I think the running backs, the top 2 guys are better than the top 2 guys last year. Receivers, I would say at worst it's a wash, and those receivers are pretty good from last year. So And then tight end, you really only had one guy who was really productive, and that's Zach Horton. Now you got a couple guys you can play. So in the offensive line, I think it's the biggest improvement. They're better defensively. You know, the secondary's been a little bit. They were a little bit disappointing against Kennesaw State. The safety position, the corners are really good up front. I think they're pretty good. Kamara started slow. But still, we'll learn more Saturday. They're talented. They've done what they're supposed to do. The Old Dominion game probably should have been about 52-7. They got in the red zone a bunch and just didn't convert. They dominated them as far as stats, but that it's a score that matters. It should have been more like the Kennesaw State game. But yeah, you're right. The schedule's been a pillow. I mean, it's been a marshmallow. Let's face it. And we're gonna find out Saturday because Illinois is really good. And Brett Bielema knows this. He's been in these positions before. He's played in these games a ton. And that team is not going to be intimidated at all. They're going to come in expecting to win, and Indiana's going to have to play well to beat them.
You mentioned Mendoza's really good. He didn't have much around him at Cal. Now he's got a lot around him. Skill positions. You mentioned the offensive line certainly looks better. What does make him different, and what makes him an NFL prospect? This is a guy that really could rise up these boards, especially with some other quarterbacks struggling early on. How does he change what they do offensively?
Yeah, I don't think the system's changed all that much. I said the biggest thing I think is his ability to run, and when things would break down, he might look to escape a little bit sooner. Now he's staying the first. At Cal, he got sacked like 40 times last year, so he had some. So that kind of, lack of a better term, battered wife syndrome, where as soon as somebody wasn't open, he just wanted to run for it. They tried to get him to stay in the pocket a little bit longer, and not be so skittish when things, maybe aren't the first read isn't open. He's got a great arm. I mean, Rourke had a good arm. I think his arm's better. I mean, he's got an NFL type arm, and he's big, 6'5", over 200 pounds, obviously. And like I said, he's not, Lamar Jackson or some of these guys that are great, but he can be a threat. He can run the ball. I mean, it was Indiana State, but he ran it in from about 10 or 11 yards out for their first touchdown, saw an opening, and he can do those kind of things. I think just the biggest thing for him is they're just getting him the mental part. There's a lot put on the quarterback in Indiana in this system. They give him a lot of freedom. So with a lot of freedom comes obviously a lot of responsibility. And so far he's been up to it. But again, the defenses he's faced the first 3 weeks are going to not compare. They would be the second or third string at Illinois. Let's be honest. Illinois, teams always play great defense. I was looking up some of the stats. They're playing really good defense. They turned Duke over, 5 times? And Duke's a pretty solid team. So they're going to have to take care of the ball. He's going to have to take care of the ball, make good decisions. I think if they protect him and he makes good decisions, they got a good shot in this game. But it's going to be tough. They're going to have to really play their best game of the season to get a win.
All right, defensively, they return a key guy or two at every level of this defense. How do you expect them to attack Illinois with the talent that they have there?
Yeah, they pretty much attack every week. They're aggressive. They like to set the tone. Their D-line gets up the field. McCall Kamara was tremendous last year. He's moved to the other side, a little bit different position. Old Dominion, he was a non-factor. It was kind of weird. Played better in the second game. And, if you go by PFF stats, whatever they're worth, he was really good in the third game. They brought in Kellen Wyatt from Maryland. They brought in a D tackle from Western Kentucky, Osea Wheeler. They got a couple guys back. That to me, that's going to be a huge part. They can't let Illinois run the ball up and down the field. They're going to have to. They're going to have to do a good job against the run and get off the. And one thing I would say about Illinois, they struggled a bit protecting Altmaier, at least a little bit in the Duke game. So that may be something Indiana really try. They try to do that every week, but really try to attack and get after Altmaier. Although you better get him because if you don't, he's going to kill you. Linebacker Aiden Fisher's really good. They lost Jalen Walker. They kind of rotate a little bit. Rolla Hardy and Isaiah Jones at that second spot. They play a 4-2-5. And like I said, the corners have been pretty good. It's a safety position was a little shaky against Kennesaw State. The numbers don't show it because Kennesaw State missed some passes that an Illinois team's not going to miss. Altmaier won't miss those throws. Their guy missed them, and he won't miss them. So I thought they played better, but again, it was Indiana State. Where are they at exactly? Like I said, we will find out Saturday because they cannot give up explosive plays on Saturday, and Illinois has got the guys who can kill them if they have breakdowns back there.
What's this game mean for Indiana?
Oh, I think honestly, it's probably a bigger game for Indiana because it's a home game.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're supposed to protect your home. It's a big game for both teams, and these are two teams that I think legitimately have a shot to get one of those spots in the playoff. I mean, the Illinois has got a really good team. They returned a ton of players, and they played well this season. I'm sure it hasn't been perfect, but they played well. But I think this is probably just like I said because it's a home game. Even though Illinois is a higher ranked team, I think Indiana has like 5.5. Is that right? I think they're
That was last I saw.
yeah, 4.5, 5. So almost a touchdown. So there's probably a little bit more pressure on Indiana, and also I said this before. I get the non-conference schedule, but when you do that, it puts more pressure on your conference games. When you're going to play these teams, and that's fine. Then you better win at home when you get teams that you're comparable to. In Illinois, say it would be comparable to Indiana. You need to take care of business at home. So I think they'll be focused. I think they'll be ready to go. It'll obviously be a step up in competition. So it'll be interesting. That first quarter will be interesting for me just to see because Illinois is going to be bigger, stronger, faster than anybody they played. I think they'll be ready for it, but that first quarter will be interesting to see. That'll kind of to me maybe dictate a little bit of the flow of the game. But it's a big game. This is a big game for Indiana because, like I said, you got to go to Oregon. I mean, to me, Oregon and Ohio State are the two best teams in the country. Well, at least what I've seen the first 3 weeks.
Yep.
And I think there's a fairly decent gap between those two and everybody else. So that's going to be a rough game. Iowa, I know they struggle to score. It's always hard. You played Iowa a bunch, and then Penn State. I've been to that place. That's later in the year. Weather could be a factor. So you need to get these games at home. If you're Indiana and if you're Illinois, you need to win these kind of games at home.
You mentioned a quick start. I think that's really important for Illinois after some slow starts, but Illinois, that early in Duke is kind of to your point, they were kind of shocked by that speed and that athleticism. So I'm wondering if Indiana has that. Is there any other big key that you're looking for Indiana to pull this off and take care of home field advantage here?
I think special teams will be important, and I haven't gone through all the stats, but I think Illinois is a Hank Beatty. He's been pretty good as a returner. I mean, you can't give up cheap points on special teams. Like a big return, and even if it doesn't go for a touchdown, let's say he gets like a 50-yard return and puts him down. Like at Indiana's 35 or something like that, or your stuff like that. That kind of stuff cannot. So I think their Indiana special teams have been good. The return, they've had a return for a touchdown. The punt returner's been good. They've actually returned some kickoffs last year. They fair count almost everything. I guess they'll keep doing that as the competition gets better, but we'll see. Field goal kicker, they haven't really tried a ton of field goals, but they've been solid. Punting's been solid. So it's always the part of the game not many people talk about, but I think special teams will be a huge key. And then obviously turnovers. I mean, Illinois, I don't think they turned it over yet this year. They're like +5 or +6. Indiana has lost one. That was in the first game, but I think they're like +4 or +5. So it's good when you have two teams with two good coaches, two good quarterbacks, skill guys, good line play and all that. It's going to come down to who makes the fewest mistakes. And I think that's what it'll come down to. I think this is going to be a heck of a game. I think it's going to come down to the end. And it may be whoever has the ball last on offense is the one who's going to win the game.
It's fun that the expectations have risen for these two programs. I think for Illinois, like college football playoff, that is an ultimate realistic goal. This is a big game to reach that. I'm sure Indiana is the same way. But what is a successful season for Indiana? Like how high is that bar risen now?
Well, I mean, let's say you have fans. What if we don't go to a playoff this year? Already on our board, and I'm like, are you joking? That's right. Like if your team goes to the Final Four and the next year you make the Sweet 16, and that's still a good season.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's tough to do that. So if this team goes 9-3 and they're playing, I don't know, the Citrus Bowl or whatever the bowl game is for the Big Ten, I always forget who that or the whatever it is they're playing the SEC school on January 1st. That's a good season. Like that hasn't happened. That happens very rarely at Indiana. I mean, they've only been to, 13 something bowl games. They go about every 10 years before Cignetti came. That was their average. So that's still a really good season. It's tough to make the playoff every year. I mean, only I don't think any school's made every year, even when it was that, it's just hard to do. So that's their goal. And if they don't make it, I'm sure they'll be disappointed. But a 9-3, 10-2 season and not making the playoff would still be outstanding for Indiana football and well worth what they're paying Curt Cignetti because, like I said, I mean, if they won 9 games, that would tie for the second best. Last year was the best season ever in history of Indiana football, 11 wins. Before it was 1967, they won 9 games. If he wins 9 games this year, he's had the 2 best seasons this program's ever seen. I don't know how any fan can be disappointed by that.
Yeah, great stuff. Matt Weaver, Pigs.com. I'll see you over in Bloomington on Saturday night for a big game between these two programs. Matt, appreciate the insight, man.
Thanks, Jeremy.
We men will talk about farts until the day we die, but we don't talk enough about cleaning that cornhole. I gotta be honest, I've always been bidet curious, so when Tushy sent me their everyday luxury bidet, I couldn't wait to try it out, and as I just told my wife, it's a game changer. Tushy is easy to install, even for guys like me who know nothing about plumbing and aren't that handy. And I got to tell you guys, I've never felt cleaner after using it. I installed it in my bathroom downstairs, and that is going to be my designated dumper moving forward because of Tushy. 99% of people who wash with Tushy Wave feel cleaner and fresher after going number 2. Every Tushy bidet easily attaches to your existing toilet without the need for additional plumbing. Instead of wiping endlessly with toilet paper, Tushy pristinely removes 99% of bacteria while protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to the #1 natural ingredient, fresh water. Install only takes about 10 minutes, and Tushy Bidet gives you 2-in-1 benefits, reducing irritation and preventing micro tears with soothing water instead of scratchy toilet paper or damaging wet wipes. People who've made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less TP as well. No more clogged toilets, no more wasting money on something that does an inferior job cleaning your body. So remember, a-hole is only a dirty word if you wipe. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off their first bidet order when you use code Illini at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com with promo code Illini. That's promo code Illini at hellotushy.com. All right, let's talk the Illinois side of things with a top 20 matchup in Bloomington. We've talked all about it. Only the second ranked matchup between Illinois and Indiana in their 75 meetings. Joey Wagner, and also the first round-ranked matchup for Indiana in Bloomington since 1987. So big game on NBC between Illinois and Indiana. Here they are, two programs that haven't been here for a long time in a marquee matchup. And we'll break down our six-pack of questions. And we're going to lead. I want to dive right into it, Joey, with the injury report. But first of all, I just want to get your thoughts on what is a big game between two programs that 3 or 4 years ago you asked us if they could have a big game, and it's pretty mind-boggling that here they are.
Yeah, you correctly called it. I think a couple of weeks ago we said this is going to be billed as the college football playoff play-in game, eliminator game, whatever. And that's what it's been billed as. And that basically, as we've talked about, means the next 4 teams, or the next group of teams, the 4th and 5th teams in the Big Ten, and what that means for them. But, you talk about, you think back to when NIL and the transfer portal really hit, and the whole conversation was, will this bring more parity? Will the rich get richer? Well, I think seeing teams like Indiana, like Illinois, who have traditionally not been in this situation. It wasn't long ago. This is an 11 a.m. BTN game, and it's like not being talked about at all by anyone. And now there's so much conversation about it. I think the portal, I think NIL in terms of retaining a Gabe Akis, we will talk about Xavier Scott shortly, Luke Altmaier, go on down the list. And with Indiana being able to go in and bring in a Fernando Mendoza and to really bolster their roster, that's allowed for more parity. I think this game is a really good encapsulation of that, and that teams actually have some ability to climb up the Big Ten ranks and by way the national ranks.
Yeah, I think it's just, you did worry about the rich getting richer, and in some ways they have, like Oregon just flexing its muscle financially, Ohio State flexing its muscle financially, but you also are rising the bottom. Like the bottom, if you want to invest in football, you can now invest in football, and you have to. So it feels like like Brett Bielema said, it just gets them closer to what some of those top programs have done for a really long time. And now it just accentuates good coaching more, right? Because that's what these two programs are. These are two phenomenal coaching staffs, two staffs that are great at going to the portal and really filling their needs. I think Indiana's done a great job of that this offseason, the last couple of years. And then Bielema has done pretty well at it as well. So I think that's the fun part is now it's not just about Jimmy's and Joe's because everybody can get them, right? Like everybody can go buy some players and fill some holes. It really does accentuate, at least at some point, whether it's the the top 5, top 6 is still the top programs that spend the most money. But that next group that can get into the college football playoff and get access now, like you're starting to see, maybe we're accentuating coaching a little bit more. Maybe we need a bigger sample size to make that kind of thing. But I think that's what Illinois and Indiana have done. They've hired good coaches. They've done well in the portal. They spent their money wisely. They've retained a lot of players, and that's why they're in a top 20 matchup here.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned. I was going to bring up coaching as well. I do think this heightens when you have good program builders who can identify talent that fits them, identify coaches who fit them, who understand, like you can see programs rise up. And then the other point, Jeremy, is the expanded college football playoff has made this game this interesting. If this were still a 14 playoff, we're not having these conversations about like this is a really fun game. It's a really good game. Yeah, it's a Citrus Bowl playing game, right? And any other, if this is still a 14 playoff. So I just think a lot of things have come together to allow your Illinois, your Indianas, and those aren't, you can go through every conference and find just different data points of teams that have brought up their floor. And in this case, it's 2 very significantly raised floors at these programs and 2 coaches who get it.
Yeah, phenomenal. So let's dive into our 6-pack of questions. And we're going to start, of course, with the news everyone wants to at least discuss or hear about our take on it. And that is that Xavier Scott is likely out for the Indiana game. Brett Bielema basically said, well, we'll give you the full report with the injury report 2 hours before the game, but he did suggest to you, Joey, that maybe it could be a little bit longer than a game, which obviously is a big concern. And it is more than fair to question. And if we hear clarity on what Xavier Scott's long-term outlook looks like, we will ask about it. But it is fair to criticize that Xavier Scott was in with 10 minutes left in the game against Western Michigan when you're up 31-0. Now, other starters were too. Like Luke Altmaier was in till the end of that game. Gabe Akis was in late in that game. But still, Xavier Scott, we were talking before we came on here, has a lengthy injury history that maybe we don't talk about enough because it hasn't affected a lot of his seasons at Illinois. But he came to Illinois coming off a serious injury in high school. He had a serious injury this past year in the offseason, didn't participate in spring ball. That was a lower leg, foot, ankle, something like that, I believe, Joey.
I think that's right. The year before that, it was an ACL.
Yeah, so he's had a long history of injuries. So especially with Xavier Scott, especially with the schedule you got coming up, the receiver groups you have coming up, it is more than fair to question that. And whenever we hear some clarity on Xavier, we will ask Brett Bielema at some point about it.
Yeah, it's a fair question and something that I would be curious to know when you balance getting those starters out of the game. We talked about it Western Illinois, for instance, right? Especially offensively, we thought the offense stayed in longer because Brett Bielema wanted to get them into a rhythm. He didn't say that was our read of a reason as to why those starters are still in there. I don't know that the defense needed to be – it was not the same scenario with the defense on Saturday. But the end result of it is Xavier Scott, your starting slot corner, a guy who I think has the ability to bounce outside. And I thought really – gives Illinois kind of an eraser, right? You got a big receiver outside, put Xavier Scott out there. If you want to play him in, like his ability to do that has given a lot of flexibility to this defensive secondary. And it doesn't sound like he's going to be available at Indiana. And then we will go from there in terms of getting information from Brett Bielema. But that's a big loss against an Indiana passing game. That's pretty stinking good.
Yeah, the other injury updates you guys got out of him today: running back Aiden Lawfrey, linebacker Dylan Rosiak are back. That's not surprising. I think they probably could have pushed it and tried to get those guys to play last week, but there wasn't really a big reason for it. So those guys will return. That's big. More running back depth. Get your middle linebacker back against this rushing attack is really important. I think an underrated one that we should talk about is Justin Bowick. Practice today. That's a good sign. Joe, he's different than every other receiver they got. The size he has, he catches probably that one that went over Colin Dixon's head a little bit and he had to reach out to grab, right? Like maybe if he runs that route to completion, unlike the Western Illinois one. But he's a difference maker, especially in that red zone, a deep ball threat. So to get him back after leaving the game last week with an injury we don't know exactly what it was would be significant. And Jaheim Clark is certainly a big one. Brett Bielema said he did not practice today. I still think there's a possibility. I mean, it's been a long time for a hamstring injury. It's been more than a month that he's been recovering for that. So it'd certainly be big to get Jaheim Clark back with Xavier Scott out. Now, he would be a rusty Jaheim Clark. He has not competed this season. He's coming off a hamstring injury, but he is a guy who's played in some big time battles and would just give you another, experienced player that has proven himself against a really good passing attack.
Yeah, to be clear, Bowick and Clark, we don't know right now. I mean, we've heard Brett Bielema say players have practiced on Thursday and it didn't end up going. I think Aiden Lawford, Dylan Rosiak were in similar situations a week ago. But Justin Bowick, you're right, different, big red zone threat, a guy that you'd like to be available if you get down into that 20, into that deep red, and you want to target a big-bodied guy who's proven to be able to do that. And especially when I think you're going to have to match some points with Indiana. And Indiana's going to have to match some points with you on the other side of that. But Justin Bowick is really big in that. Jaheim Clark, I mean, we thought he'd be back for Western Illinois. Like, this has been kind of hey, he's very, very close. He's very close. Brett Bielema acknowledged today, I've said this a few times, I know, just feels like, man, if there were a game that very, very close turns into getting out there and having to deal with Russ, is likely being without Xavier Scott against this Indiana passing attack. I think it could open up some doors for you, too. You could have him and Patterson outside if you want to go Torrey Cox in the nickel, or you could have him and Cox, or whatever the combination. He's proven to be a starting caliber cornerback in this league, and for Illinois, he's really, really talented. But yeah, there's going to be some rust involved there, but I would still take my chances if you can with that rust versus not having him.
It's not the same injury, but there are downsides to pushing a guy when he's not ready for competition. Jalen Johnson and the Bears figured that out last week, and you don't want to hurt that again. So just say caution. There's some caution. They've got a long season.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you don't want to rush him back before he's ready.
And Brett Bielema acknowledged that, right? Yeah. Brett Bielema said he's a really good player for us. You don't want to rush this. And as you mentioned, Jalen Johnson's a great example where you come back and then things can kind of go from there. But I think if he can go, that would be a really, really big lift for this secondary.
All right, let's bring it up. Question number 1 of our 6-pack questions for number 9 Illinois and number 19 Indiana. What does Xavier Scott's injury mean for Illinois in this matchup, Joey?
It means you're going to have a Tanner Heckel step up. You're going to have to hope Jaheim Clark is available. Tyler Strain, a guy that we haven't talked a great deal about, has played a lot of snaps, some good, some bad. I mean, there's been some late career growth for him. I think Corey Parker has been a really good coach to help Tyler Strain come along here in his final year of eligibility, but you just need a little bit more from everyone. Maybe that's Miles Scott in the star and Matt Krasevich back at safety. However it looks, I mean, it's not ideal, right? To go against this team and this passing attack, especially when you consider, I thought Xavier Scott was coming off easily his best game of the season last week. He was awesome last week against Western Michigan.
I know it was Western Michigan, but it was one of his best performances of his career. I think Kansas obviously is the number one. I thought the first half against Minnesota and Daniel Jackson was phenomenal. We saw what happened when he left that game. But he was all over the place, just all over the place in that game. So, yeah, it's a huge loss, especially given that they have 3 good receivers. And Surratt is a phenomenal college football receiver, but Cooper in the slot, Amar Cooper Jr., is incredibly explosive. He averages the last 2 years more than 20 yards per catch. And, now Miles Scott can play in the slot, but I don't know if I want to put him man-to-man against that kind of speed. So that's where a Tanner Heckel, Tyler Strain, who's really fast, but technically sometimes can improve. Torrey Cox, I think, would be a really smart matchup with him, but that means somebody has to step up on the outside, and that's Tyler Strain or Juice Clark if he returns against guys like Surratt and E.J. Williams, who's a good player too. So now they're shuffling, and that's always concerning, Joey. But one of the bigger concerns is down the middle of the field, you are so consistent, right? Miles Scott, Matthew Bailey, Xavier Scott. Now you're adding somebody who either doesn't play that position as much in Tyler Strain or Torrey Cox, or somebody who's really inexperienced in Tanner Heckel. So while I like that they got some serviceable guys, some guys with upside like Heckel, it's just in this kind of environment against this offense, it just leaves a big question mark. And there could be one breakdown and Omar Cooper Jr. and Fernando Mendoza make you pay for it in the slot. So yeah, it just adds a lot more uncertainty, because going into the game, I thought cornerbacks were my concern because you got, Surratt and Cooper and all these guys, but I felt good about whoever Xavier Scott was on. I felt good about Miles Scott and Matthew Bailey. Now it's like you take a huge piece out of that, and it just a potential for Indiana to exploit somebody that's not as experienced in that position.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you then. I know I brought it up on here before, so I don't want to belabor it, but I remember talking to Sidney Brown about just that the star is considered within this Illinois defense as safety. Even though you think nickel corner, Xavier Scott certainly is more of a corner by kind of second position than he is safety, but the continuity that is required between your boundary, which was Matthew Bailey in this case, your free safety and Miles Scott, and your nickel is really important. Sidney Brown talked about that. It's part of what made that 22, beyond being really talented in the secondary. It's what made them click as well as they did because they played so many snaps together. So now you're disrupting them. I'm not saying that's the end all be all, right, and that you can't overcome it, but there's a communication that you would think Matthew Bailey, Miles Scott who are already good communicators, have to elevate that even further with a new face at that position. So that's kind of an underrated thing to look at, but that communication, especially against a team that can push the ball and is comfortable throwing the ball all over, that's got to be on point.
I do want to bring up before we move on. This would stink for Xavier Scott if this is longer term, right? Like this would really stink after returning for another year. Now he got compensated very well, and he's talked about that. It's a big reason he came back was the money he's making at Illinois. But he could have been a draft pick, whether it was 4th round, 5th round, whatever it was, and been in the NFL and taking his shot there after his junior season. But to add another injury to a long list of injuries, the NFL is going to be concerned about that, right? So he would, if the worst case scenario happened and he missed the rest of the season, he would have a red shirt. The 5-for-5 rule could pass before then as well, but he would be able to have a medical red shirt playing only 3 games if his season did end here. And he would get paid handsomely to come back to Illinois, and that would be a good thing. But that stinks for a guy who's, going into this year looking to up his draft stock. If he missed significant time, Joey, that won't happen. So that's why you hope he can come back at some point this season. But whenever you hear somebody getting a second opinion on something, that means the first one probably wasn't great. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, and just real quick, beyond a medical red shirt, he still has an actual red shirt that he can use because he played as a true freshman. We'll see. I mean, obviously that's very far down the road, but yeah, that would be a bummer for him who's played his way into a position for life-changing money, and to have a potential injury here is senior year, big year to put on tape, obviously, right? That'd be a huge bummer.
Yeah, and I know Gabe did. I'm sure Xavier did too. Like the insurance policies that these guys can, but still, you don't want to have to use those. So we'll see what any kind of clarity we can get Saturday from Brett Bielema after the game. All right, number 2, Joe. I was going to lead with this, but Xavier Scott obviously overtakes that. Where does this game rank among Bielema's most important games against Illinois? I think this one has a lot of buzz, maybe more buzz than a lot of his games because Illinois is number 9, Indiana's number 19, the college football playoff possibility here. But is this the top most important game for you, or what do you think?
Yeah, someone asked this on the boards the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. If you go back, like the ones that are in contention for me are down the stretch in 22, you host Purdue, you host Michigan State, really to win the West, and go to Indianapolis and play for the Big Ten championship. So it's hard to not have those very high up there. The ranking wasn't there, right? The AP ranking wasn't there, but from a meaningful standpoint, those were huge games and a chance to win the West.
Yeah, the way I rank these is by the stakes of the individual game. And for me, it is still 2022 Purdue. You could have beat Michigan State and still lost to Purdue and not made the Big Ten West title. Like you needed to beat Purdue in that game. That was basically a win and you're in, lose and you're out. So for me, making a Big Ten championship game still would have been the pinnacle so far of this tenure to win that West, to go take your chance and play Ohio State. I think it was Michigan at that time. To have that chance would have been huge for this program. And I think
at that point in Brett's tenure too, right? His second year to go and do that.
That would have been unbelievable for that to happen. So that still to me is number one. But how quickly we forget last year, a 4-0 Illinois team went to number 9 Penn State. A 6-1 Illinois team went to number 1 Oregon. You win either of those games. Now you would have to play out the rest of the season, but you win either of those games, you're probably going to the college football playoff. So those were ranked on ranked games that would have put Illinois in that CFP conversation last year too. So those are really high up there.
Yeah, you know what? The Citrus Bowl is too.
Yeah.
Because that was 2 teams that didn't have a great deal of opt-outs. There were a couple for each team. That was a straight up 2 of the next best teams in the 2 best conferences going at it. And that win really helped propel a lot of offseason conversation about Illinois and has really given way into this season. Initially, the Michigan game last year came to mind. That was a bigger deal, pomp and circumstance with the 100 years than it was for actual, like what it meant for that season. Though obviously beating Michigan, it paved the way for you to go to Orlando for the Citrus Bowl. So this long way, like this is probably because I think this could really catapult Illinois to go into beat the college. Like now you're talking, hey, Illinois is in the driver's seat for a college football playoff spot. Like that's a reasonable conversation to have, but I can't take Purdue 22 out of there because of what it could mean at that point in time. So it's probably somewhere between that and the Citrus Bowl. The Citrus Bowl is a huge freaking deal.
Yeah, and for me, it's similar. I still think like the Penn State Oregon games, like beating one of those teams would have, I thought, brought even more buzz than beating Indiana will here. Now, if you do beat Indiana, and it's probably just the difference of the stakes of the actual game and the buzz. I think Illinois fans just want this buzz right now, and that we are serious. And if you beat Indiana, you're going to jump up in the rankings, I think, a little bit. You'll probably jump some teams. We'll see how that all has to happen, but there's a lot of jumbling going on. If you go to Indiana and win, I do think you're going to move up in the poll. You're going to be talked about as college football playoff favorite. Brett Bielema is going to be on every national show he can to talk about his program going into USC, but you still have a lot of work to do, right? And even if you lose against Indiana when you're a 6-point underdog, you can still make the college football playoff if you beat USC and if you beat Ohio State and you take care of business against the teams you're going to be favored against. So it's a huge game. There's a huge game. It would set you up great for a college football playoff contention, but there's just a lot of work still left to be done with some big games coming up. So I'm not trying to say it's not a big game, but there've been other games I think have had as many stakes as Brett Bielema, and that's a credit to him, Joey, about how many big games this program has played in over the last 4 seasons. And this is another one. The fact that this isn't with a number 1 with a bullet tells you a lot about the Brett Bielema era. We are covering a lot of big games. It's quite fun.
That was my last point I had written down is, hey, big games are kind of the norm now, and they're a lot of fun. And like someone on the boards this week today, maybe even like captured it so well. Like, 1, I can't wait for Saturday, and 2, it's weird to have actual suspense and build up for a football game, right? It used to be, again, 11 a.m. BTN, great. Hey, by the way, what's anyone over at Ubben today? Like that's how it used to be. And it feels both long ago, but it wasn't that long ago before this really turned. So Brett Bielema's got this program where big games are happening, where they've become the norm. Like you mentioned Penn State and Oregon. Maybe it's because they lost and, you kind of just get so transactional in the fallout. I didn't even think about though, but think back to the buildup going in to those games. They were huge games, and there's a lot of conversation about Illinois.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I thought Penn State, they outplayed the first half. Just the bad snap kind of ruined it. And obviously it was 14-7 to start that fourth quarter. And Luke Altmaier throws that pick 6 that just kind of changed the game. So, yeah, I mean, they were right there. They would have had chances and would have been in the college football playoff now in hindsight, given what they did with the rest of their schedule. Were you shocked at all? I mean, now it makes a little more sense that Indiana is a 6-point favorite. I mean, a DB flipping this thing 2.5 says a lot about Xavier Scott. But were you shocked at the 6-point spread that continues to rise here?
I'm not shocked it's continuing to rise. Just losing a first-team All-Big Ten selection, and it sounds like he's out, right, against this offense. I was a little surprised it opened at 4.5. Like you give 3 points to home field, and I think Bloomington is going to be rocking on Saturday night. But I thought like 3 would have made sense to me because that's typically what home field is so for it to open at 4.5, we've known that the metrics really favor Indiana, and Illinois has been playing a little bit of catch up in terms of the metrics. That doesn't matter for everybody. It matters a lot for some, however you look at it, but I'm not surprised to see it's gone up, but I would have expected it to open as 3-point favorites for Indiana, not necessarily 4.5.
Yeah, listen, I know Indiana hasn't played anybody. Old Dominion, I know that win looks a little better now that they beat Virginia Tech and got their coach fired. But that score was actually a lot closer than the game actually was. Oh, Indiana was up 27-7 after the third quarter, and they had failed to score inside the 20 on 3 drives. So yes, that's a failure for them, but they out first downed Old Dominion 30-10. This is a good team. This is a really good Indiana team. I thought they'd be a 3-point favorite coming out, and I think they deserve that because kind of gets overlooked because of how much Illinois returns, 75% of their production, according to Bill Connolly from ESPN. Indiana returned 62.5% from a college football playoff team and added and might have upgraded a quarterback, right? Like Fernando Mendoza, he's still got to be tested in the Big Ten. Rourke was fantastic last year, but Mendoza can run when Rourke really didn't do that so much. So they haven't been tested. I get it, but this is a really good football team Illinois is playing.
Yeah, it's a really good team. And it's been like the sneaky fun part about this is 2 fan bases that have kind of found a little swagger here. Yeah. And they don't really particularly care for each other from basketball. And there's a lot of trash talk on the socials right now. And that is really fun, but it's also 2 kind of different approaches. Have you noticed, like Indiana fans, hey, this is the college football playoff team a year ago. They bring back, they're talented. They feel like they're like, yeah, all right, let's go. And Illinois fans are still a little bit of scar tissue from Illinois fans that are, some are still trying to work through that. It's for 2 programs that are very evenly kind of placed in college football in the hierarchy of college football. There's a little bit of a different approach, but there's still the same distaste for one another on social. And that has been fun to see, a little bit of football trash talk.
You could probably say the same about like Indiana basketball going into the year. They think they're going to be great every year, and then they don't. But every year they think they're going to be great. Well, Illinois basketball fans are, yeah, we're a tournament team, but we ain't going to win the Big Ten. We're not going to get to the Sweet 16. You know what I mean? So it's like it's really interesting the different psychologies of each of them. All right, let's get into this game a little bit more. What's one thing? Question number 3. You want to see from Barry Lundy Jr. in this game on the offensive side of the ball, Joey?
I want to see the pass setting up the run. I think that has been what has opened the Illinois offense in the second half. I think Indiana is going to come out. They would be foolish to not pressure the heck out of Illinois early on.
They don't do a lot.
They don't, but the tape is there, right? The Duke tape is there. The Western Michigan, Bart Miller said one of Western Michigan's blitz packages was not something they'd shown on film before. It's what they stole straight out of the Duke playbook. Like, until Illinois shows they can handle this pressure, whether that be from an offensive line standpoint, from a tight end blocking, from Altmaier, from a play calling standpoint, I expect teams to pressure them, especially with Indiana at home. If you can get an early 3 and out from Illinois and really like give yourself a chance to blow the roof off of that place, like I expect them to do that. So quick hitters, get Hank Beatty in space, get Colin Dixon in space, get Hudson Clement in space, and let them go. Make sure Indiana can't load the box on you, and then try to get Fagan, Lawfrey, Valentine, give them opportunities. But we've seen them be kind of insistent on getting that run game going in the first quarter, and it's just not really. It hasn't worked out for them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they come out, let Luke Altmaier first play RPO it, right? Give him a chance to get it out to Hank Beatty and let him get some work done in his field and show Indiana that, hey, we're going to quick hitter and you can't pressure us to death.
Mine was RPOs, Joey, because Indiana runs zone coverage about 90% of the time. That screams for you to run some RPO. Put those linebackers in conflict because they have to go back and cover some space. But if they come up, you got Hank Beatty, bang, that's an easy play. Malik Elzy on a slant, bang, easy play. Get those easy yards, even if it's 7 yards. Give your receivers a chance and set your run up, right? Like I think you got to set this offensive line up a little bit better for some success. And when you get that tempo going, listen, you're going to have to score points, I think, in this game. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable scoring in the 20s. And I don't know if you're going to win that game. So you do have to go, I think, a little bit more up tempo and let your offense start to cook the way that they do. So if they don't, if the linebackers, don't bite and they drop back, then your running back's got room to operate, man. And I think Caden Fagan going downhill, Khalil Valentine, Aiden Lawfrey, those guys are capable of having really good days. So I also wouldn't be afraid to use Luke Altmaier's legs, right? I don't think they've wanted to, have him take too many hits here in the first couple games. I don't want to get him hit very much. I don't want him carrying 10 times, Joey, but I do think you got to use those legs a little bit to your advantage. Maybe it's early, maybe it's late, but that's why I like that RPO game. You're not going to do it all the time, but I do think against this defense that runs so much zone and to get that run game going, I think this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, to use Altmaier's legs, don't do it out of necessity, right? Where he's running around because you've had a breakdown. I think, we talked about it. Luke Altmaier is comfortable in tempo. He's talked about it. And visibly for us, it looks like he's comfortable in the RPO. And with his understanding of what defenses are doing, what his offense is capable of, and maybe you come out and try to run it up a little, like try to tempo that a little quicker, because they've talked about, and I found this interesting, Jeremy, I'm sure you did too. Brett Bielema mentioned it on Saturday. Luke Altmaier is very much a rhythm quarterback, right? And for everyone, that's probably a little different, and it's kind of the vibe I got when I asked Barry Lunny about it. If you can get him in a rhythm by trying to get some tempo going, by trying to get some RPOs, some quick hitters, put together an 8-play first drive, a 9-play first drive, doesn't mean you shot it downfield, but you just let him feel the game. I think that's something that you can build off of and carry. You don't have to try to make it in the second half.
Yeah, and this Indiana team has had some breakdowns that Kennesaw State and Indiana State weren't able to exploit down the field. So even if you're getting these little chunks and then you can take a shot once you get between the 40s, that can help. But, this game, you also kind of want to see Barry Lunny get into the bag a little bit, right? Like the Duke game, calling out that play for Hank Beatty. Don't know if it's for him, but at some point, like you can unleash that bag a little bit. But I do in zone coverage. You got Altmaier, you got Hudson Clement, Hank Beatty, Colin Dixon, smart guys who kind of know space. So I do think that RPO game can get things going a little bit. And you got to start quick. You can't allow Indiana to get ahead early because they can bury teams, Joey. They absolutely, like, you can criticize Indiana for schedule the last couple of years. They just took advantage of a beds. They blew teams out when they beat them. Like Nebraska was atrocious last year for the Cornhuskers, 59-7. Like they took care of business, so they can really step on throats. And Cignetti and those guys are really good coaches. They have really good talent on offense. So it's important not just to get a quick start to correct for past issues. It's to quiet that crowd a little bit, Joey, and to give your guys confidence. And at least make Indiana feel like they're in a game. Like they haven't felt that outside of Ohio State, maybe a little bit of Michigan last year, and in Notre Dame, obviously in the college football playoff. So Illinois is one of the best teams. A Cignetti Indiana team is played against. Make them feel that. Make them feel a little doubt early in the game by getting some points on the board early.
Yeah, and to that point, make that Duke game where you struggled at half, like you were struggling in the first half, and you kind of work through adversity, make those lessons pay off, put them in a little bit of adversity. See if you can force them to have to figure that out on the fly like you did at Duke. I do think real quickly, and it was something that we had talked about during the week, these slow starts that have been a huge storyline because they've been very real. And it's just because of how different the second half is, it makes the first half look really like, what is going on here? Like this is, obviously, we see what you're capable of doing. It's like 10 standard deviations from what you see from half to half, right? So
second half, they could beat anybody in the country. Like that's how good it's been, right?
The thing that I think is really interesting, if you think back to the Duke game, J.C. Davis got beat twice on plays. And Luke Altmaier said after the game, we had to kind of adjust to their speed. You come off a Western Illinois game and you see a team with power 4, mid to high, into their conference power 4 speed. You've got to adjust to that. So will they kind of offset? Will Indiana have to adjust to the speed of Illinois having not played a power 4 opponent? And if so, will that offset a potential slow start for the Illinois offense? Like if you told me this game was 10-6 at halftime. And then I got to math this out, 24-20 after 3 quarters. Would you believe that?
Yeah.
Like it's a slow start mixed with adjusting to speed, and then you really see the full ability of these teams go after half.
Yeah, but to your point, like Indiana hasn't faced a team as talented, as fast as Illinois yet this year. So take advantage of that and get off to a good start because of that. Use that to your advantage. All right, number 4. What's one thing you want to see from Aaron Henry in the Illini defense in this game?
Yeah, I'm going to build off what we talked about after the game on Saturday, selective blitzing. I don't know that you're going to see the exact same Duke game plan as in terms of dropping back. Don't let Mendoza beat you on the ground. Don't get beat very deep. I think there's going to be some pressure, I think, ramped up on Indiana, but Aaron Henry has to decide what are the best possible times to do that, because you can't just sell out to stop the pass in this, because Indiana is very content running like crazy. Like, you actually have to be ready to stop the run first. And then if you can blitz selectively around that, I think that's something that Aaron Henry could do. We were talking about this early. Fernando Mendoza in the last 2 seasons, so last year at Cal and then through 3 games this season, 52% completion percent when he's under pressure with six touchdowns and no interceptions. Now, you hear that and you think, well, blitz him like crazy, right? Bring guys and blitz him. Yeah, he's pretty good when you blitz him, though. That's kind of the hard part. He's completing 62% of his passes when blitzed over the last 2 years with 13 touchdowns and no interceptions. So you can't do it all the time, but you also want to find a way to bring pressure. Please, yes.
Because PFF, those guys do a great job, and they did a preview of this game on YouTube, and they have the numbers of Mendoza when he's not pressured is 3rd in the country, and when he's pressured, he's like 144th. There's some nuance involved in this because he is good against the blitz. I think he's like 44th in the country, but he's still an effective quarterback when he is blitzed. This year, he's got a PFF grade of 73.5. As you mentioned, 305 yards, 4 touchdowns. Last year, a PFF grade of 81, which is really good. 61 completion rate, 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Altmaier is way worse than him when blitzed. Altmaier had a PFF grade so far this year of 55. Last year, 65. 52 completion rate last year when blitzed. So I feel like Illinois fans think we got to send the house against Mendoza. I don't think that's the case. I think you have to get a 4-man rush. Like, you have to get pressure through a 4-man rush, and especially with Xavier Scott out. He's not great against man coverage, but I think you're going to have some over-the-top help, right? So I don't think you're going to blitz 5 or 6 guys and just go 1-on-1, 5 against 5 receivers out there. So it's really important to find a way to stop the run but get pressure on him without having to blitz all the time. But I agree with you. Selective blitzing is going to be really important, because the one thing I want to see from Mendoza is if you can get Gabe Akis and Tommy Wadurjai and James Thompson and Alec Bryant and Leon Lowry coming off a good game, if you can get some pressure from those guys and just give them a little bit more time, whether it's 0.4 of a second, Joey, by disguising some of these coverages. Reading some of the NFL draft reports, one of the questions they have about Mendoza is his ability to diagnose coverages and go against man-to-man. But what's great, what Aaron Henry does incredibly well, and you hear every coach talk about this, is how good they disguise coverages pre-snap. And that's Miles Scott, Matthew Bailey, Xavier Scott's been a big part of that. But they have a lot of experience back there. So just giving that maybe half second of like, oh, what are they doing? And then having to throw, if that can give your 4-man rush just a little bit more time. But those guys are going to have to be effective. Like, your defensive front is going to have to show up here. So yeah, I think that's one of the keys here, is slowing them down a little bit by confusing him pre-snap and giving your guys just a little bit more time to get home.
Yeah, and can you scheme up front one-on-one matchups for Gabe Akis?
Stunts.
Is that something? Yeah, if that's something you're able to do, I think, if you think back to a presser Aaron Henry had maybe before Western Michigan, I think it was, talked about a boxer where you try to set them up throughout the course of the game to make your big move in the 4th. I think you zoom out on that a little bit. Is that what Aaron Henry's been doing in pieces for the last 3 games? Because if you go back and watch, he has brought pressure from a few different spots. He's kind of shown a willingness to bring pressure from, maybe it's your linebackers, of course, that's an easy one, but you've seen him bring Matthew Bailey. You've seen him bring Miles Scott. You've seen him bring Xavier Scott. So can he bring pressure from somewhere? He's kind of put the tape out there that we'll bring it from all over the place. Similar to how we talked about Manny Diaz, only I think he was much more aggressive in the frequency. But that's something I want to see. Where does Aaron Henry try to, when he does bring that heat, where does it come from? Because I don't think it's always going to be just your linebackers. I think he's going to try to bring it from a few different spots.
Matthew Bailey is one I'm really interested to see.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, number 5. What concerns you most about Indiana, Joey?
Just they're really complete. They are a very complete offensive team. Just as soon as the numbers are very inflated when you play Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Old Dominion. Like, the rush numbers are not real right now. The 307 yards a game, that is not going to be there all season, but they are going to run the ball, and they can do it effectively. Even with losing a running back, Roman Hemby's been a good back in the Big Ten for a few years now. They can still do that.
Their offensive line might be better than last year. I mean, adding Pat Coogan from Notre Dame was really good
player.
Carter Smith, the left tackle, was really good. So they feels like their offensive line might even actually be better than last year.
So just as soon as you think we've got to not let them run the ball, by the way, they got a really stinking good quarterback and good receiver. So that's why I'm so interested in what Aaron Henry does in this game and how you go about game planning for that. Because at Duke, let's be honest, the second half, Duke quit running the football. You could just sell out that they're going to pass this thing time over. Indiana ain't going to quit running the football. So how do you live in both worlds with that? I think it's a really hard matchup because they're so complete on both sides of that.
I'm going to go bigger picture here. One of my biggest concerns is they're really well coached, just incredibly well coached. It's one of the few games I go into this year thinking Illinois doesn't have an advantage there, right? Like, it feels like they can match wits, and they could actually even have potentially a better game. And they know how to respond. They know how to make adjustments. Now, against the Ohio States and Notre Dames, they just didn't have the talent to compete with them. It's kind of like you're looking into a mirror with these two staffs, these two rosters. So yeah, they're just really good. They're disciplined. They won't beat themselves that often. They're confident. They bury teams, and they got a lot of returners. Oh, and I know some of these guys are back from last year. They got some new guys, but there's a lot of players, especially in this defense, who go back to Cignetti's days at James Madison, right? So they've kind of been in the system. They have good leadership, and then they've gone to the portal and added really good players like Mendoza, Hemby, Coogan. Hosea Wheeler is a good defensive lineman. Their tight end from Wisconsin is a nice player that Bielema said he was recruiting. So it's just a really, really well-coached team. So I don't think they're going to just, it felt like Duke at some point was overwhelmed and just didn't have the kind of pivot to turn in that game. I do think Indiana's going to have that. So I just think they're going to bounce back from a mistake. If they make one, they don't make a lot of them. So it's just a really disciplined team. So you can't beat yourself because they probably won't beat themselves either.
Yeah, 2 number 8s aren't showing up on special teams in this game.
That's right.
And I would imagine, Cignetti's probably not going to have a freak out over the substitution pattern for Illinois. He's probably prepared for that. So where else can you find maybe some advantages? It's tough because it is a really good coaching staff and a team that is not going to get in its own way. You don't destroy people the way that they did a year ago if you're getting in your own way. Those scores were incredibly lopsided, and that tells you that's a team that is very, very fundamental. Like, I was kind of talking around this week, and I was saying, how do you get a read on this team when the level of competition is just not there to this point? And some of the feedback I got is they still execute. You can still see them executing on tape exactly the same, and that is what carries over game to game. And I think the fact that you're still getting a team to execute, and I'm sure you talk to the Pigs guys, they're going to say it hasn't been perfect because that's what the first few games of the season are. But when you're executing like that's repeatable. That's a very, very repeatable thing.
Yeah, strong.
It's good coaching.
Yeah, strong in all 3 aspects. So it's just it's a great matchup. It's just a great matchup of teams with good quarterbacks. Like, Indiana's got a quarterback that can match Luke Altmaier or beat him, right? Like, on his best day, he can. Altmaier can do the same to them. They got some good defensive linemen who've been really good, are going to play in the NFL. They have a DB like Xavier Scott, D'Angelo Pons, who's going to play in the NFL. They're really experienced. They've won some big games. So it's just a really fun, even matchup, in my opinion. All right. What gives you the most confidence about Illinois in this matchup, Joey?
The way Illinois is taking care of the ball through 3 games. And that doesn't mean Luke Altmaier and the offense aren't going to have a turnover. In fact, odds are, I would tell you that they're probably going to have one, and Indiana's probably going to have one because they take care of the ball very well too. But turnovers have not been a problem for this team offensively. And that when you're on the road for a place that's ready to go, right? I mean, Bloomington's going to be ready to erupt at any given moment. That is just to keep yourself on even playing field as best you can without worrying about, man, you know, they've won these games, but there's been fumble issues or intercept. That hasn't been the case. This has been a really, really sound team in protecting the ball, and that makes me feel better about going in there because the more times that Luke Altmaier has that football, the better I feel about Illinois' chances to get out of there and win that game and to be able to put some drives together and get in that rhythm that we talked about earlier.
Yeah, my biggest thing, Joey, is that Illinois has been here and they've done this before. We've seen them do this since the beginning of last year. They went on the road and won games last year. They've done it already and won on the road this year, facing adversity in that first half. They've been 10-point underdogs against South Carolina and won a game, right? Like they've gone on the road to start Big Ten play in a raucous environment at night and beat a ranked Nebraska team last year. And Luke Altmaier is just, he's just cool hand Luke, man, in these kind of games. So, and he has a very good team. They're incredibly well coached. They got a guy at quarterback. They got weapons. They got veterans. But if this is a close game in the fourth quarter, Illinois has a lot of winning experience in those kind of games to fall back on. Well, Indiana, they bury teams. That's to their credit. But make it a close game and see how they respond, because outside of Michigan last year, they just weren't in those games. And we haven't seen Fernando Mendoza in those kind of games in the Big Ten against an opponent like Illinois. So this Illinois is one of the best teams. They've played under Cignetti. Indiana's capable of beating Illinois, but make them feel that. Make them feel that pressure in a big environment, and just give Luke Altmaier a chance, you know, in the fourth quarter and see what happens.
Fourth quarter, Luke Altmaier is very much the Creed Brett, and like he don't give an F about nothing, because he really doesn't. He's calm in that. I think his poise, as Barry Lunny mentioned, that you asked Barry Lunny about Luke Altmaier's improvement on Monday and talked about not being frustrated at halftime. I mean, there's the broad frustration, right, of where the offense was, but not letting that be.
See that, right? I like that he kind of hit on the mental aspect, because we've always seen the flashes of playmaking, throwing, and running for Luke, but it's just the command, the calm, the poise he has. And there's been moments he hasn't been, you know, in rhythm, or, you know, it seems like he's a little bit off in those first halves when his offensive line is struggling, but he doesn't get defeated by them like he did his first year.
Yeah, Lenny's quote was, quote, obviously our offense was frustrated. I was frustrated at halftime. We weren't playing well. Our defense was playing lights out. We were just not clicking. He later on said, quote, Luke didn't allow that to affect him. Even in week 1, I think he got a little frustrated and was pressing a little bit, but I saw him let that go and be calm, and that's a real positive thing for him. We saw that in week 1. We saw that in that third quarter where it just kind of, maybe his second quarter, but we saw it with him. It just kind of felt like he was trying to bury Western Illinois with the one throw, right? And it did take a little bit of time for the offense to go. I thought that was a really good point by Barry Lunny. And if you're going into a tough road environment against a really good team, against a team that you assume isn't going to make many mistakes, you want a guy who's not going to freak out at the most important position on the field. We talked to Hank Beatty about it after the game at Duke, very similar. I just think that's kind of the demeanor you want in your quarterback, and Luke Altmaier's got it.
All right, let's dive into our picks to click. Joey, you can start off with the offense, but we did not. I don't think we hit on this last week. You had Khalil Valentine. That's close. I had Colin Dixon. Man, if you would have pulled in that touchdown, I would have hit. But I'd give you the edge on that one. So who you got this week?
My guy scored a touchdown. The edge. That's a clear win.
Yeah, it was a late one, but yeah, he did.
Clear win. No questions asked. Hudson Clement. I think it's
down. I had him written down.
You've seen it with him a little bit more. He played his most snaps last week. just starting to look like that guy within this offense. And I also think you mentioned D'Angelo Pons. He's probably going to be focused on a certain Hank Beatty, correct? And that would, not having to go up against the best Indiana defensive back, maybe would give Hudson Clement a chance to make some of those plays and to kind of have his most productive game to this point.
I had Hudson Clement written down as an option. I thought you might take him. I'm really tempted to buy into the Caden Fagan momentum here.
Oh, do it.
I thought about it, but Joey, I'm going with the layup. I'm sorry. Big time players make big time plays in big games. Hank Beatty. You need Hank Beatty to be great. Pat Bryant made big plays in big games, if I can talk. Hank Beatty's got to do it. Even against a guy like D'Angelo Pons, got to make big plays. So Hank Beatty's my guy. I'm going to go with the easy one there.
We should probably mention, I think we're intentionally not just saying Luke Altmaier every week.
Yes. I mean, obviously.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure we all agree that he's kind of in the 23 Isaiah Williams, 22 Chase Brown mold of not just saying the quarterback every week and making this a little bit more fun to hear, because it goes unsaid that Luke Altmaier is going to have to be pretty good for Illinois. Yeah, I do. Go ahead. Yeah.
Let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Last week, you picked James Thompson Jr. I had Malachi Hood. I think both of those are pretty good. That's about even, right?
Yeah, I forgot I had James Thompson, even though you sent it in what we're going to talk about, because I did initially have James Thompson again.
Go again. These guys.
You know what? I switched it to him late because I did have another defensive lineman, Tommy Waderjaye. Stills, I don't know that this is nose tackle is never really a big productive stat-wise, and I think when you're going up against a Pat Coogan, you really think it's not going to be that. But if you can get your noses to eat up some space, Tommy Waderjaye has flashed. Like, the flashes have been very, very bright for him. You are going to have to stop the run. Like, for as awesome as Mendoza is, you've got to stop the run. And that's why I leaned on either Thompson or Waderjaye. I think Waderjaye can do it, and I think he can. If you're talking about needing your defensive lineman, your non-Ackuses, right, to make a play and not have to bring heat, Waderjaye has flashed that he's got the ability to do that. The Indiana doesn't give up a ton of pressures to this point. That would make sense given who they play. The right guard is a high with 3. So we'll see how much pressure they get, but Waderjaye has shown the ability to make some plays on that defensive line.
He's going to get some one-on-ones, right? I assume we can't pick Gabe Backus here, right? Because
why? Do it.
He's got to show up. Like, he's got to win some battles. Are we at that point we can't pick? I don't think we can pick him anymore.
I will give you the grace to pick him.
I'm not.
This game. But if you do, hold on now. Don't just quit. We're not quitters here. You can pick him, but to click, it's got to be like a holy crap game.
It's got to be like a game record performance. Yeah. So I'm gonna flip this around. I tell you what, I turned on that tape. I really liked what I saw out of Leon Lowry Jr. It's the guy I thought
my other guy. Yes.
When they went in the portal, right? You and I were talking. It's like, Alec Bryant's solid. I think he's going to be good. Alec had a great game. He was a defensive MVP for Illinois. But there were just some flashes of what Leon was doing, being able to just be explosive off the ball and his pursuit of players. Like, I just thought that film looked really good. I think he's going to earn some more playing time this week because they got to find a way to get pressure with their front 5, front 4. Like, right, they got to be able to generate some pressure out of that. And he's probably the next best pass rusher that they have in that group. So I think he's got to get some. And whether it's 3 pressures or a sack, like I just think Leon Lowry, maybe it's only 25, 30 snaps, but I think he earned some more playing time this week. And I just liked what I saw last week. So I'll go a little bit off the board with Lowry, rotation guy.
He was my other guy that I had in that list because I like what we saw a week ago. I was really encouraged broadly by the other outside linebacker spot. I just thought the combination of Joe Barner, who's apparently got mattress gate going on right now. He's got to figure out a mattress that doesn't hurt his back. Between him, between Alec Bryant, between Leon Lowry, Daniel Brown when healthy. But I just think that group really complements each other well. They're comfortable rotating that group. I like what you've seen out of that. And I think Lowry is a guy, as you've mentioned, who has the potential to make some of those plays and to generate that pressure.
All right, let's go with our bold predictions. Neither of us hit one. I was close. Davin Stoffel touchdown for Joey, no. Malik Elzy touchdown for me, no. Joey had 3 straight games with a strip sack. Was that for Akis?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That didn't happen. Xavier Scott interception came close, Joey, but did not happen. All right. So what do you got? Offense, bold prediction.
I don't know if this really fits on offense. If the offense starts slow, which there's a body of work to suggest that's very possible, is this the fake special teams day for Illinois? If things are starting to get a little stale there, if Bloomington's ready to roll, is that a way that you come out there and you quiet the crowd with the fake special teams? I don't know what that looks like. I don't know if I'm going to commit to it on punt. I don't know if I'm going to commit to it on a field goal. I don't know where I'm going to commit to it, but I think that could line up just in understanding how valuable it would be to try to quiet some of the noise. They did it in the third quarter last year against Michigan, ultimately take a 14-7 lead to a 21-7 lead. That's you didn't really want quiet, right? You wanted to blow the roof off the place. Feels like because they did that, I thought, oh, Bielema will do this in big games. If you've got the personnel and if you see something, my only hesitation is he's talked so many times about how sound Indiana is on special teams. So I don't know if that's what gives me some pause, but screw it. It's a bold prediction.
All right. I'm taking one you took a couple weeks ago. I feel like we should do this every week. Jordan Anderson touchdown week. Feels like it's right. It's about time for Jordan Anderson to get touch near the goal line. And they just didn't use the tight ends that much last week. And Barry Lunny really loves using those guys in the red zone. So I just feel like those guys get targeted a little bit more, and feels like Jordan Anderson kind of sneaks out there. They haven't put it on film of what he can do as a receiver. So I'll go with Jordan Anderson touchdown on that one, Joey.
Receiving touchdown?
Yes.
All right. Touchdown. Has he stepped into the second tight end you want on the field the most at this point?
Rusk, I just don't know if he can block yet. That's why his snaps have been limited. I think Christian Abney has flashes of it. He just needs to be more consistent of being a blocker. He got them second most snaps last week. Davin Stoffel, I'm guessing that's a little bit of blocking too, that they need to see a little bit more consistency for. But I just feel like Jordan Anderson, I know what his role is, right? He's going to be that H-back. He's going to take a handoff and get you a yard or two. Like he had a really impressive yard gained on a 3rd and 1, 4th and 1 a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So that was a big one. And just, he is a threat once you get to that red zone, 13 personnel. So yeah, I just kind of know what he is. Still figuring out what these other guys are. And if they really have like overall well-rounded skill sets.
Is his touchdown reception, is it going to come from the H-back spot? Is it going to be one of those where you line up to sell out like he's going to be
a blocker
blocking, and then you just dump it out to him in the flat?
Yeah, some creative like that, where they'll fake hand off to Caden Fagan, Luke rolls out and finds Fagan wide open or
like
something.
How you throw it like it's over your head, like Luke's just gonna alley-oop it into Jordan Anderson. I like that pick. Defensively, I knew I had Leon Lowry written down somewhere.
There you go.
So I don't mean to take your pick to click here, but I have him back-to-back sacks. He had one last week. I think he's going to have one this week. I just am really intrigued by him, and I do think
so. We both
him
win
and Hudson
when he does that.
I will say you were able to say the picks to click first. I can pivot off for a new bold prediction if you want, but I did actually prepare, which is hard to believe, but I did prepare. I will if you say yours, and I will come up with one.
I just wrote down Mac Resetich big play. I don't know what it is. I said Mac Resetich big play. Because I feel like, we're starting to hear Xavier Scott going to be out, and I just feel like Mac's going to play in this game. And when they go man-to-man, Mac plays a little more. So if you're going to go man-to-man, you need a rangy guy over the top. Maybe Miles plays a little star. I just feel like a Mac Resetich big play is going to happen one of these couple of weeks. So I'm just going to make a bold prediction. It's this one with Xavier Scott out. Get a guy in that you trust a little bit more, gives you some more rangy guys that can make a play, maybe on Fernando Mendoza.
I like that. That's a broad.
It's very bold.
But I like it. Just you're very bold, very broad. I mean, if you come in here and tell me like 3 tackles, like what a big play on 3rd and 1, then I'm going to be like, hey, get out of here.
You'll know it.
I know.
He stops Mendoza. It's like it's obviously interceptions like 89% of this. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will stick on the interception front. Torrey Cox. he's just, especially with Xavier Scott out, his stickiness is just a little different. He plays at a little bit of a different pace. You think back to that Nebraska pick when they needed it. Maybe Torrey Cox, if Xavier Scott's out, Torrey Cox just feels like him, like, screw this. Like, that's just kind of, he doesn't seem to get bothered by a lot, and he's just a guy to rise to the occasion. So I'll take a Xavier or a Torrey Cox interception.
It's time for an interception, right? Like, it's been a lot of forced fumbles so far. So this secondary gonna have to make a play if Mendoza gives you the chance.
Yeah, it's Tanner Heckel. Heckel's got the one. Is that it? That can't be it.
I think so. This is where we pause and see how fast IlliniFootball.com.
Oh, I can't even navigate the menu.
Oh, yeah, he's the only one. It's the only one.
Wow.
It's time. It's time for them to get one.
I agree. And that is now the hard part is Mendoza doesn't do that. He has not done that through 3 games, but just I think the quickness, the stickiness of Torrey Cox is not something that he's seen to this point. This season feels like Torrey Cox can sneak one in there.
All right. Any final thoughts, Joey? There's a really tough game to pick. I think Indiana is the favorite, especially with the Xavier Scott news. Makes a lot of sense. But, I really struggle because I picked a close game. And it's like, how do you pick against Luke Altmaier if they get no close game? So I just hope it's a great one. I think it's a great test. We're going to learn a lot about both these teams. And it's just, I keep going back to it's so fantastic that these two teams are in such a meaningful game.
It's fun. It is very, very fun that you're going to have, we know NBC does a great job. This is going to be a well-produced game for people who aren't in Bloomington. I think it's going to be a really good game. This is fun, man. This is going to be under the lights, Bloomington. It's a good one. Yeah. Is Brian Hightower going to be like the honorary captain for Illinois this year?
So I was wondering if we were going to bring that up. The last time in Indiana, Brett Bielema brought it up. The last time basically left a bad taste in our mouths the way we left that game because, Illinois did not play all that well, but to have that Hightower touchdown taken away from you, leaves a bad taste. You could tell Bielema knows it's a big game. He knows it's a huge game for his program, huge opportunity for his team, huge opportunity for the season. You got more of them coming up in the next several weeks, but this is such a tone setter. I just thought that Nebraska win following Kansas, it just set the tone for the rest of the season, opened the door to all these possibilities to where you could go to Penn State and be like, hey, you win this one, you're a top 5 team potentially in the country. You go to Oregon, you beat them, you're going to move up to the top 10, and you're going to be in college football playoff territory. And eventually they win enough games to get to the Citrus Bowl. So to be in these games means a lot, but to win them is just season changing.
Yeah, and I'm sure people who cover Indiana regularly would probably say the same thing about Curt Cignetti in this because he's a really good coach. When these big moments rise, I trust Brett Bielema to figure out a game plan and an approach and manage the game and to give his team the best chance to get out of there. Like he's earned the trust in these games that he is relentless and that he will figure something out and he's going to turn over every rock. You got to execute and you got to, but I don't worry about the game plan on either side being off. It's just, you got to execute it.
Yeah. And unlike Oregon, you don't feel like you're just outmanned. Unlike coming up Ohio State, you don't feel like you're outmanned. Like Penn State, even though I felt like you were outmanned up front, like you still found a way to compete in that game. Indiana's a good team. Like I think the talent's pretty even here. So it's going to be fantastic to see who executes, who has the winning game plan. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's what college football is all about. So thank you to Joey Wagner, also Matt Weaver from Peegs.com. Thank you to you guys for listening. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications bell. We're heading to Bloomington on Saturday. We'll have you covered there. We'll do our live post-game podcast late at night with another late kickoff. So join us there after the game. But for Joey Wagner, I'm Jeremy Warner. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time on the Illini Inquirer podcast.